iPads go, your mobile phones go, there's no communication with the outside world. You are in the monastery and you stay in the monastery, and that's all you know for a month. There's no outside news, nothing. Although if something major happens, they will tell you, like the typhoon that came through, they did put up that it happened, so we could all think of the victims and this sort of thing. But generally, there's no communication. So it really does, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to run to. There's nothing to distract you. Often when something comes up that bothers us, we run for a distraction. We run for our laptops, or we run for our favourite piece of music that we know is going to make us feel better, or we literally run. We go for a run. We go to the gym. We do these things that we think will make us feel happy. But once they stop, we're then facing what was there before. We then just go back to square one. So the idea of being here was understanding other ways of dealing with that aren't running away. Really understanding why these things happen and the ways that we can think things through. Now, I'm not going to go too much into philosophy because I know some people here just won't mean anything to. Some people will belong to other religions. I don't want to tread many toes or for people to feel like I'm pushing this on anybody. If you wish to look into it, then by all means do. It really is very interesting. I find it very interesting. It can be very scientific, it can be very psychological. For some people, it isn't a religion. For some people, it is just a way of life. For me, I genuinely came out feeling like a different person. I have done one course before, and that again changed me a lot, I feel. And it really is, it's a great thing to do. It's a great thing to really look into your mind. During meditation as well, it really encourages you to go into a different world, a world that's more controlled, so you can face the things that bother you, and face the way that you approach things. But on the other hand, you're very often being told that you're wrong, not in an aggressive way, but in a roundabout way, and we don't particularly like that as people. So some people do react to it, some people get very, very angry. In one case, a gentleman stood up at the back of the meditation hall and he shouted, and I mean he shouted. He swore and he shouted at the teacher, saying to him he'd been here for 1 week and he'd learned 3 things and really going for him. And it was mostly just because there was nowhere for him to run. So it all boils up, it all comes up, and then it comes out. And all of us just sat there very calmly listening because most of us understood that it was just his way of dealing with everything that was happening. So it is very intense, it is very full on, but it also really, for me, it really allowed me to understand what's inside, what is going on inside, what causes our negative mindset, and how actually relatively easy it is to turn that around to a positive one. And to see more positively, to be more compassionate, to be more kind, to see the good things in people. To, even if it does cause you slight discomfort, to still do it for somebody else. And we often will do that for our loved ones, but why not other people? And a lot of that is because of what we feel we get back from it. We want something in return. Even when we're in a marriage or in a relationship, sometimes it is about what we get back. We say, I love you. If it doesn't come back, we get upset. It's that kind of thing. If you have the compassion and true love for the other person, you love them whether it comes back or not. And that's just one very simple example of how they teach things and how it comes across and a way of seeing things differently. For me, compassion and kindness and their teachings comes through my voluntary work. It's the way that I choose to use that compassion and that kindness and to help others. And in some respects, it does mean sacrifices. It means not having a wage, not working, and not having, a regular income, which does bring some insecurity with it. It means travelling to foreign cultures, which I love, but as I mentioned before, is a real challenge. But for me, it's worth doing because it really can make a huge difference to other people. So what am I doing next? So the next part of the journey is to travel to Vietnam. And I will be doing that on the 5th of February. When I travel there, I will be working with a company or an NGO, a charity called the Life Start Foundation. Just as all of the other places that I've been, they're doing amazing things. And there is a small outline on the sheet that you found on your chair, which will tell you a little bit about what they're doing. But I will just tell you a little bit as well, just to expand on that. So they're a grassroots organisation who are working with the disabled people of an area called Hoi An in central Vietnam. Again, it's a developing country. It has rapidly developed since the war finished. very much only developed for a certain area of society. There are still big areas of society, as with many cultures, who have been left behind, and particularly the disabled within them. Some of them who did suffer injuries in the wars, amputees and the like, but others who have been born and been affected by what they call Agent Orange, which is a chemical that was dropped by the Americans during the war, and unfortunately it is still in some of the soil in Vietnam. So there are still babies being born with deformities, and obviously disabled. So these people don't get a lot of help, just like in Nepal. It's a very common problem in the developing world. But these people are there to help them. So they do so in a number of ways. They have a free clinic, which I will be working in, which helps disabled people. It gives them therapy every week, once a week, to help reduce their pain levels, but also to increase their functioning, to help their limbs move, to help them get stronger, to help reduce tightness that you can have, and just make them more able to interact within society. They also run a workshop where disabled people make their own goods, beautiful goods. There's a shop online which you can find through the website I put the link on your piece of paper there. They make beautiful things and they sell them within the workshop, and the money they get back is their wages. So it's about empowerment and it's about pride. It's about them selling something they get back from. It doesn't go to someone's pocket. They don't only get a very small margin, they get what they sell. So it's a great way of giving to the people, but giving it in a way that they can sustain it. It's not about going in, doing this thing, but then leaving again and taking much of it with you. It's about teaching them, setting up things that they can continue to do themselves. So again, it's not about being the hero. It's about giving people power within themselves. They also do outreach programs to homeless shelters, and they help people out there, again, a lot of which have disabilities, and that's a lot of times why they're homeless, because they are rejected within society. And they also work at a Red Cross centre. They also run a school for children, again from disadvantaged backgrounds, who can't necessarily afford the state system, which in many developing countries they do have to pay for. They don't have free schools like we do over here. So it gives those children a chance of an education. And some of them do get on the scholarship programme as well, which then pushes them onto university. Many of them want to be doctors, many of them want to be nurses, many of them really want to make a difference. They're very caring children. And they have a chance. It gives them a chance. So that's where I'm going next. That's going to be with the Life Start Foundation. From then, I come back to the UK in around September time, at which point it's highly likely I'll be holding another talk for what I've done in Vietnam. You're all welcome to come back and listen to what I've been up to. At that stage, I will then hopefully have set up a charity for people in Nepal. The hope is that that will begin in June or July time. I'll be setting it up to help, because my health background initially is going to be health-based. So the idea is to help improve health in rural areas, but also to spread the good work that CIRC are doing. Kalpana knows of a number of villages in the surrounding foothills who, as I said before, don't have treatment for disabled children. The children don't go to school. They're a lot of the time actually locked indoors, or sometimes even chained up because their parents have to go to work. They can't watch them. They want them to be safe. They don't want them to harm themselves. They actually chain them to something. They can't move. So obviously that's horrific. That's not a way to live. So Kalpana is extremely passionate about spreading what their school is doing. So the idea is that along with the company from the UK, who are developing a teacher training tool, is for physiotherapists to train local people in basic rehabilitation skills so that they can treat these children in their villages and in school, like they do at CIRC. We will help provide equipment for them to sit in and for them to get to the school with. We'll teach people how to move their limbs, how to reduce pain, and how to get them walking, sitting. It is things that with guidance they can do themselves if they're taught. Kalpana will be in the country. I hope to be based there a lot of the time. We will be mentors for these people. And they will have workshops, they'll get to meet each other, they'll get to interact, ask questions. So basically it will get disabled children into school. It will get them an education. It will hopefully, eventually as some of the CERT's children are set up to be. So that's one of the projects. The second project, which will be starting in October, is for me to go up and live in the high Himalayas, in a village called Biding village in the Rawling Valley, which is up near Everest. I'll be living at 3,500 metres altitude in a rural village, and I'll be starting a health clinic up there. Right now, the people of Biding village have to walk 4 or 5 days and then get in a bus for a day before they can reach any significant medical care. They don't just pop down to their GP surgery, they don't have a pharmacy around the corner. It's a real mission for them to get any kind of healthcare. So the hope is that we go up there, again use this teaching tool to train some of the school graduates there in how to provide basic physiotherapy, so how to help arthritis, how to help other joint problems, because they work extremely hard in the fields up there, so they develop a lot of joint problems. A lot of them are farmers. But also to help anybody who needs emergency care, we will teach emergency first aid. We will hopefully employ a nurse, and we will hopefully have regular health camps. So doctors from Kathmandu will come up and do a health check of everybody. Dentistry, opticians, everything else, just to do like a health sweep and just check if anybody needs any medical care. It will hopefully incorporate a pharmacy, so they will have basic things like antibiotics there. Right now, if somebody gets a chest infection, which is quite common at that altitude, and when it gets very cold in the winter, they don't have that, and a lot of it does go to pneumonia, and there will be deaths because of that. Whereas if antibiotics are there, you take an antibiotic, and usually it will clear. So potentially it will also be saving lives. It will teach people how to deal with heart attacks, it will teach people how to deal with strokes, and all of these things. But again, it's going to be their clinic. It's not my clinic, it's their clinic. It's very much going to be run by them, it's going to be their project. We are teaching them to hand it over to them. So again, it's empowerment. It's helping this community to look after themselves. But obviously, as with everything, it's about the finances. It's about finding the funding. It's about donations. And part of that is from the UK. So as you'll see when you go out and have a look at everything over there are some donation pots around. So if you wish to give extra donations, you are extremely welcome. Everything will be really gratefully received. And everything that you buy today, whether it's a raffle ticket, whether it's a pack of tea, cards, anything that you buy, all of the profits from that will either go to my next trip in Vietnam. As soon as that pot is full and I'm funded, everything else will go towards a charity. When I come back in the summer, from then on, everything is going into Nepal, because that is what I'll be doing from then on. So it's all about trying to empower other people. It's all about trying to use my skills along with other people to really help others. The Nepali food that you will be eating today is made by the Nepalese restaurant in Winchester. There are leaflets out there. The gentleman, Mr. Adhikari, who runs that restaurant, is also extremely keen to help his people back in Nepal, and he is going to be coming in a partnership with me to start this charity. So just to give you an idea of what money can do out there, Western money goes a long way over in developing countries. So for each person that we train, £600 to £700 will pay for their wages for a whole year. Okay? So around £70 a month, £60, £70 a month will pay for them to treat either their villagers or to get children into school, and for somebody to be there for them, to help them, to treat them, to take care of them. So obviously to an individual, that can be quite a lot, but to a group of people, putting £10, £20 in, it soon adds up, and it soon really helps others. Medication out there is also cheaper, so a small amount can go a long way out in these other countries. So that is the idea. This is what I've been doing for the last 18 months, volunteering in different countries, leading up to almost a climax, I guess, in starting a new charity. It's no small feat. I'm not deluded. I know this is going to be a huge challenge, and I'm always thankful for all the support I get, whether it's financial, emotional, people's professions like accounting and all those things that can help. If any of you here have a profession that you think can help with these projects, then please do come and have a chat with me. There are business cards scattered around, so feel free to pick one up and get in touch if you feel you do have a speciality that can help with what we're trying to do out there. At this point, I'd like to say a huge thank you to everyone who has supported me to this point. Anyone who came to the talk last time and donated, or anybody who supported other people who support me, especially to my family who supported me along the way. Obviously it's difficult when I go, leave the country and leave them behind. It's never easy for them or for me, for that matter. It's difficult. But they support me nonetheless. I always feel supported. I know they're there for me. When I'm away from the country, they carry on campaigning and they carry on working for what I'm doing. And without that, I wouldn't have that support to do so. So I'm always extremely appreciative to them. And also to everyone who helps things happen here. I mentioned Vernon and Arminal earlier. They're always a driving force behind these talks with advertising and giving tickets and coercing you all to come. And it really is fantastic. I have people like that behind me who really work hard for also have the vision of what I have to try and help others. So thank you all for coming tonight. I can hear clattering in the kitchen, so I don't think the food is far away. So please have a relax, peruse everything that's behind you. And like I say, donation pots around. If anybody would like to give anything extra, it will go a long way. On the back of your sheets is my blog address as well. So if anybody would like to follow what I'm up to and where that money is going, you are extremely welcome. There will also be photos going up on there as well for you to follow and see what I'm up to. And my details are also on there, my email, my phone, everything else. If anybody wants to be in contact for anything, please do. Wherever I am, the developing world surprisingly has very good internet access, so I'm usually contactable. So thank you again. I hope you enjoyed the talk. I hope you learned something. I hope that it's maybe a little bit more of an understanding of what incredible people are doing over in these countries. I always feel like the press over here is so incredibly negative, and it's nice to hear every now and then what incredible things some people are doing for children like these, but also just everywhere. There are NGOs in every country in this world, in the developing world, doing really incredible things for a lot of people. So when you're seeing the negativity on the news, just remember all these amazing people that are doing quite incredible things. Thank you very much. Any questions? I did tell you, didn't I? I promised you questions. Any questions at all? Don't be shy. Yes?
When did you take the volunteering way from?
That was meant to come at the beginning. That's a very good question. So I trained as a physiotherapist, it must be 4 years ago now, at Birmingham University. I studied all the master's programme. I'd already done a psychology degree beforehand. I worked in an NHS hospital in Stoke-on-Trent for 2.5 years, basically learning the ropes, learning the basis. I unfortunately became ill with chronic fatigue, or ME, whichever you prefer to call it, whilst I was there, and got very sick. I'm usually a very active, sporty person. I couldn't walk a mile outside of work. I got really, really sick. It got to the point where I nearly had to quit my job. I was on all kinds of review programs, and effectively they were trying to get rid of me. But on the other hand, they did also support me. I don't want to make out like there was no support at all, but their hands were tied. So it was all very stressful. I travelled before, so I knew that I loved foreign countries. And effectively, whilst I was sick, to get me through it, I decided that if I recovered, which doesn't always happen with ME, unfortunately, I would go again. And this time I would use my skills for people whilst I was away. So that's kind of how I came back. Luckily, I was treated using an alternative therapy called chirokinetics. My lovely mummy sat at the back there, treated me and cured me. And as you can see, I'm pretty sprightly. I did improve. And so I decided to go away and use my skills. I was lucky enough to have contacts in the UK who knew of places to work, because it can be very difficult to find places to volunteer. And often there are, unfortunately, companies set up who kind of monopolise the market a little. They charge you to go, which can get very, very expensive. And the charities actually see very little of that money. But if you're lucky like me, you have the contacts and you can contact them directly. And that's one of the reasons I do my blog, is so that people can contact me to give the details. So that was how I got out there. The first volunteering trip, as I said previously, was to India, to the poorest states, where it was, intense. There was real raw poverty, like something out of the Red Cross advert in Africa, really. Like, people had nothing. And that was a real wake-up call. I actually did it as part of a bigger trip. I was away for 7 months and only volunteered for 3. but I soon realised that should be the priority. So when I went to Nepal this time, it was to work. I left Kathmandu for 5 days for the time that I was out there. The rest of the time I was working or in the monastery. So now it very much is my career. I go out to places to work. It's not a travel trip. It's very much to work.
Is it naive to think that you don't get paid at all?
I don't get paid at all. No, quite the opposite. I pay for my accommodation, I pay for my food, I pay for my flights, and I pay for my visas. Because a lot of these NGOs are quite small. They're doing amazing things, but they are small. They have very little funding. So all of their funding, understandably and quite rightly, goes into the work that they are doing directly, which is why I do things like this to raise funds, which allows me to go out to help their organisations and takes the pressure off of them to produce those funds. Whilst I'm out places, Nepal was slightly different because it was a different area for me. So as I mentioned, I was very much learning. I was the student. But other places, like in India, and what I was doing in Vietnam, is me passing on my knowledge. So I teach their local workers who often, they're not qualified as such. They're like a rehab worker, kind of like a healthcare assistant over here. So the kind of difference between a nurse and a healthcare assistant. So I go out there and share my knowledge, share my skills, and train them up, basically. So when I leave, that knowledge carries on when I've gone, and it improves their treatments, and therefore improves the life of those they're treating. I also develop their services within their departments, and I effectively manage their departments. So yes, I don't get paid, but it's more than worth it. When I was sick, I managed to save a lot of money because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go out, I couldn't, do anything that I normally would have done, so very little money was spent. So luckily I did build up a bit of a pot, but as you can imagine, 18 months in, that has started to dwindle slightly. So that's why I do things like this, to, like I say, pass on the amazing things that people are doing, let people know about the incredible charities that are out there. If you wish to support them individually as you go away, I would encourage that wholeheartedly. But also to let people know what I'm trying to do. Often when you say you're going volunteering, as I mentioned before, people do see it as a holiday. And when you say, you start asking for money to support, a lot of people say, well, it's your choice. You're deciding to go out there, you're deciding not to earn. People need you in this country too. But in this country, certainly when I left my job, I think it's pretty much the same situation now, there were maybe 400, 500 physios going for every job. Out there, they're scraping around trying to find people to help. So for me, I am needed more away from this country right now. And the more I can continue to do that, the more I will, especially through the new charity in Nepal.
In Kathmandu, were you able to rehabilitate, or what's the right word for the children sufficiently to be able to return home?
Yes, to a certain degree. It's difficult to tell because, as I mentioned, the charity started in 2009. So for many of the children, they haven't come to the age of leaving yet. So it's difficult to tell in terms of what will happen afterwards. The plan for the 2 eldest girls, who are both 14, I believe, they will leave at 16. But the plan is for one of them to remain as a teacher at the school, and the other one is to return to her village, who is the one the school started for, and she's planning to go back to her village and be a teacher there. So for both of them, it's moved towards a career, it's moved towards a life-changing thing, they have something to go to. And for many of them, they have come without being able to walk, and now they can. And in Kathmandu, wheelchairs are relatively useless because the pavements are incredibly haphazard. You have to watch your feet all the time, otherwise you're straight over on your face because they're just so uneven. The curbs are huge, a lot of them are half a foot high, so wheelchairs are pretty much useless. So being able to walk is obviously a huge thing. But as I mentioned before, it's not only about academic, it's also about life skills, things like sewing, making tea, which for Nepalese women is a huge part of their society and fitting into family life. So yes, in some respects, it's very much building towards getting them into society and getting them home. And they also make adaptive footwear, and they make splints, they do create walking They give them like seating systems that support them in the right ways to be able to sit. So even if they can't sit on their own, they can sit within these seats. So all of those things mean that they can return home. It will be much easier to be cared for at home, and the parents will be able to manage. So yes, it's all geared towards getting them home, very much so.
Many years ago, I started and ran a school like this in the Caribbean,
Excellent.
and we were underwritten, as it were, by the Red Cross. Can you get funding?
I haven't tried the Red Cross in particular. Unfortunately, as with the economic climate, which I'm sure you're all aware of, it makes it very difficult to get funding. The NHS used to be very proactive with helping with projects like these, but unfortunately, obviously with the dire situation they're in, there's just no chance of getting any kind of funding. It's usually a case of going to corporate people, but again, you know, it's still very difficult. There's job cuts, and they can't be seen to be giving foreign aid when, in a sense, they're not looking after their own, and it soon creates a lot of uproar. I was lucky enough, whilst I was in the monastery, to meet a professor from the US who has run an NGO in the past and is very knowledgeable about writing grants. So she's coming on board to help me write funding grants, and she has a couple of ideas to try in the US, so I will be looking towards those. A Buddhist organisation is also interested in helping up in the hills for the health clinic. So it's really a case of just reaching out through people such as yourselves who may know other people who know other people. And it's all about the networking and trying to kind of create avenues to find those funding. With the projects that we're doing, if a group of people decide to come together and donate a wage each year, then that's that sorted. And it is a relatively small amount in terms of UK incomes, and obviously not for everyone. I'm not saying that it's a small amount, but it's manageable for a lot of people to give some money towards that. So it's about individual funders, but it's also about larger ones. But it is difficult. It's really difficult right now. And it's about just trying to make those inroads as much as possible and seeing where we go, which is why we're starting with one project and seeing how it goes and how we manage with funding. Because the last thing we want to do is start too many and then not be able to continue them and offer support and then take it away. We really want to get something concrete. We'll always be looking for other ways of creating ongoing funding. For example, with the clinic in the Rolling Valley, we're planning on setting up some treks to go up there. So for anyone who has trekking in the Himalayas on their bucket list, it will be somewhere they can trek to. So we'll be looking for them to get sponsorship for doing the trek. And then they'll trek up, see the clinics, they'll see what their money's going towards, and then trek back down again. So it's an incredible area to trek. It's near Everest. And it's also fairly secluded. It's not a big trekking route. So we're hoping that will encourage people. And people from the village, a lot of the time in the hills, are Sherpas. They are porters. So they're trained to do trekking guiding. So we will be employing people from the village to do the guiding and the porters as well. So again, that will give jobs. So that's one of the ideas. And if we get a group of maybe 4 people doing a trek, each raises £500, that's over a year's worth of wages for the clinic, 2 years. So we've got a few treks going each year, and that's pretty much the clinic sorted for a couple of years. So it's things like that, trying to be imaginative with ways of getting funding in. And my philosophy the whole way along has been to give something for the money that we get back. So like giving you a talk, or when you buy things, the money comes back. So again, you get something in return. You come and trek with us, the money goes to the clinic, you get an amazing experience. So it's all about giving, circular giving, as I mentioned before. So yeah, that's kind of the philosophy that we're going with, and ways that we're trying to fund.
What sort of height was the trek route?
I believe it's very difficult to get heights from the locals because they don't hold GPSs, they don't really know.